So Trump in the 80s, when he was building real estate development deals in New York, Trump didn't like to use union labor. And so Trump was using illegal Polish migrants to demolish asbestos in his rehab in the Commodore. Uh, I, I forget what building it was, but Trump was using Polish illegal migrants to do the demolition work. They were working underneath the table, and they did it. They used to sleep at the job site because they didn't have nowhere to stay at. So they used to sleep at the job site as illegal migrants, the Polish undocumented workers. And Trump knew that they were undocumented workers that he was paying underneath the table. And so he knew that they were tearing out asbestos, but Trump didn't give a damn. He just wanted the job done underneath the table for a limited amount of money. And so Trump needed to make a connection with the concrete club in the Five Families of New York, which controlled at that time all the construction concrete jobs through the union. Fat Tony Salerno, Paul Castellano, Tony Dust Collardo, they all controlled the concrete club. So anybody that wanted to build high-rise buildings in New York had to pay kickbacks to the Five Families through the unions. And so Trump knew that Roy Cohen was a lawyer for the Genovese crime boss, Fat Tony Salerno. And so Trump sought out Roy Cohen as a lawyer to be like a ambassador for him with the Five Families. Like that, Trump didn't have to pay that much towards the union, and he can just pay directly to the mob bosses kickbacks for window installations into his high-rise building and for concrete pouring when it came to his developments of his development deals at high-rise buildings in New York. So Trump sought out Roy Cohen intentionally to pay kickbacks to the Five Families of Italian mob families of the Commission of New York, the Mob Commission of New York. And so even in New Jersey, when Nicodemus Scarfo had his Scarfo Inc. Concrete company, Trump needed to build his Taj Mahal. And so Nicodemus Scarfo was controlling the concrete supply for the Trump Taj Mahal. And Nicodemus Scarfo started infiltrating the unions, the casino unions within the Trump casino. So at the end of the day, Trump know that he needed to get things done with his development deals. And he always used to like to do things underneath the table, hire undocumented workers. When Trump had his, when he took over, I think it was the Commandant building. When he took it over, he wanted to expel, because there were some tenants that didn't want to sell their rights to their condominiums. They wanted to stay living inside the condominiums. And Trump wanted to empty out the whole building to rehab it, to redevelop it. So there were old ladies that owned condominiums in one of, I think it was the Commandant building. And so, so Trump invited drug addicts and drug dealers and crackheads to move into the building for free. He invited homeless people, crack dealers, and drug dealers to move into the building in order to force the remaining tenants out of the building. So Trump was a sheisty developer. He knew what he was doing. He was skirting the law. The Russian mobster and Russian oligarchs were using the Deutsche Bank to launder money into the Trump Tower, to buy, to launder their money into buying Trump real estate condominiums within the Trump Tower under that affiliation associate that Trump was dealing with, that had an office 2 floors beneath Trump's office, that was buddy with Trump doing Moscow Trump Tower deals. The Russian mob was using Deutsche Bank to buy Trump condominiums with his associate, the Trump affiliated associate. That associate had a lieutenant that was a lieutenant in the Russian mob. So Trump always laid down in bed with the mobsters, and they took advantage of him as a flunky. They extorted him for as much money as they can get out of him. Even Roy Cohn was juicing Trump. Trump always been a dim-witted fuck that people took advantage of. His whole life, he's been a sap. And I don't mean to curse. It's just that I get too flustered, and I lose my temperament when it comes to Trump. So Trump thought that by using Roy Cohn to be his emissary and his bridge into the commission, the Italian mafia in New York and in New Jersey, with the concrete supply companies that were controlled by Italian mobsters, Trump thought that he was on cloud nine in the 80s. He thought that he was on cloud nine, that he was untouchable. He thought that he was developing his real estate deals for pennies on the dollar by using the mafia to supply underneath the table and pay the mafia underneath the table to get his deals done affordably and cheaply. Trump thought he was getting things done in the 1980s, developing his real estate deals in New York, and in New Jersey. So Trump, he was proud of showing off his lawyer Roy Cohn in the 1980s. Trump was proud of showing off Roy Cohn, and Roy Cohn, he had his feet in politics too. He had his hands in politics in a famous trials in Congress when it came to McCarthyism. So at the end of the day, Trump was like, he loved to pile around with Roy Cohn because it made him feel like an untouchable in politics and in New York underworld. That as a developer he can get things done for underneath the table, paying underneath the table to get things done. So he didn't mind laying down with the mafia and paying kickbacks. But the mafia juiced him for as much money as they can juice him. They extorted him for as much money as they can get. And they were using Roy Cohn to flunky Trump around. But Trump thought it was the opposite. Trump thought that he was in control, that he was the shot caller, that he was the one that was controlling the vibe of the underworld by being the most prosperous developer, what's the word that I'm looking for? A mogul. He thought he was there's a word I was trying to remember, but I can't remember it now. It doesn't come to mind. But Trump thought that he was on top of the world in the 1980s, and in reality, he was a shyster. He was committing tax evasion by overvaluating his real estate when he went to get bank loans. But then when it came to tax audits, he said he was bankrupt and that he was worthless and that his properties he devalued his properties. So Trump committed bank frauds, tax evasion, and he got indicted in New York for bank fraud, tax evasion, business racketeering. They charged him $500 million, but Trump bribed judges in New York to get him off the hook when he couldn't get a bond company to put up $500 million for his New York fraud trial case with Letitia James. But like I said, Trump using the New York corruption, he got judges to alleviate the tax penalty from 500 million to 100 and some odd million. And then he got a bond company to put up the 100 and some odd million. So to give him a bond. But Trump always been a corrupt individual, skirting the law, and he always used lies in order to get his way through society. He's a con artist. He always shuns corruption and anything that has to do with having himself compromised. He always deflects everything in politics as a witch hunt, fake news. The media, the government is corrupt. The deep state is corrupt. It's fake news. It's a witch hunt. The media is the enemy of the people, and so he cons his supporters into believing him. But all he is a con artist and a grifter. So Trump thinks of himself in the 1980s as a tycoon, a robber baron, a real estate mogul. And he does quid pro quos with mobsters. And so they took full advantage of juicing him. And so it's funny because Trump always accuses Biden of the Biden crime family, but in reality, Trump made a business out of it, of being the Trump association of the crime family, if you will. So yeah, Trump is a scoundrel. That's why when Letitia James started to unravel Trump's corruption, you can add that New York development deal corruptions of tax evasion, bank fraud, insurance fraud, business racketeering. Trump even through his Save America PAC and his mega movement bribed New York judges to get him off the hook, if you will, or incentivize judges. Let me say this: incentivize Republican judges to get him off the hook with Letitia James when they found Trump guilty of all that real estate corruption. They fined him $500 million, and Trump used Republican connections to incentivize the Republican judges to lower the penalty to $100 million instead of $500 million. And then Trump summons to Mar-a-Lago all the oil tycoons of oil company CEOs to go to Mar-a-Lago to donate to him $1 billion so he can use it to pay off his legal penalties to the rape victim that he had to pay a fortune to because he kept on alienating her, to his New York fraud trial, real estate fraud trial. So he was desperate for money because he couldn't get bond companies to post the money, to front the money for him as a bond. So he summons all the CEO companies to go to Mar-a-Lago to give him $1 billion so he can get himself off financial hooks and penalties and fines in the New York trials. Yeah, so Trump begged all the oil company CEOs, the biggest oil company CEOs, to go to Mar-a-Lago to donate to Trump Save America PAC, or to donate to Trump $1 billion from American oil companies, for Trump can pay for his bond debts in New York trials. Can you imagine Trump inviting all the major CEOs of America's richest oil companies to go to Mar-a-Lago to insist that they donate $1 billion to him, to Trump, for Trump can use it to pay off his legal debts of his crimes that he committed in New York. Can you imagine that? Only in America can we have the rotten apple under J. Donald Trump